We've climbed out of the mountains and now we're sitting at the surface ceiling of the PC-12, 30,000 feet. Up here the air is thin, the fuel burn is low and the views are unmatched. But the PC-12 isn't just about getting high and fast, it's about where you can go when you come back down. Today we're mastering the long game, fuel management and cruise efficiency, before we're making a landing using this nice aircraft. Now we've leveled off, we moved from climb power to cruise. On the NGX we've got a unique feature called low prop speed mode. What this function does? With a tap on the button we reduce the propeller RPM from 1700 to 1550. That has a nice effect because it reduces the cabin noise for your passengers without sacrificing much cruise speed, and in Flight Simulator 2024 you actually hear the pitch of the engine change to a deep, comfortable bass. How to see it, right? How does that functionality work? Well, currently you can see that the RPM is roughly around 1707 RPM and the button can be found over here. So above the flaps you will find the prop low speed. If we press this option and then quickly look back, you can see that the RPMs are dropping. Right, that's good, because if the RPMs are dropping it's better for the noise, and maybe you also hear that the noise is lower compared to how it was previously. However, that might be a little bit hard to hear since I'm continuously talking. At this altitude we're burning roughly 60 to 70 gallons per hour, giving us a massive range of over 1800 nautical miles. Keep an eye on your fuel totalizer on the MFD, because we need to make sure that we've got enough fuel to reach the destination, of course using the safe operation procedures. Now the fuel can be seen over here, right? Here we can see the fuel which we've got left, the quantity and the fuel flow, and you see the end, which is kind of weird because, believe me, it's really not 3 hours and 42 minutes which we need to fly, but this is likely the number of, let's say, hours and minutes we can fly. Currently we can see that the fuel used is 26 lb, and sometimes you see pop-ups coming up here in this MFD screen and that you need to check the fuel. In that case, make sure that the fuel over here matches this one to make this error go away. I'm not sure why it's continuously showing that, but for some reason it does show it, and even if you press the compute option like I currently do, it doesn't really, change. What we can see here is that the fuel remaining is 0.9 fuel and that the ETA is roughly 31 minutes, so we've got some information. Currently we're flying from Nizar to Molen and then we're into that discontinuity state. That has to do, of course, because we didn't select an approach yet. Although I configured one, but it looks like that the aircraft hasn't picked it up yet. Once we're there, say at Molen, I will show you how you can add the approach and then arrival routes so we can safely move to our end destination, which is LFMP. Here you can see that it is kind of, already there, right? But believe me, it's not completely there because I also figured it out the hard way. This is, by the way, the message which I referred to, the compare fuel quantity. If you see it here, it's at 11.75, and then if you go in here and you correct it, then it is gone. If this is the correct method, I'm not 100% sure, but I couldn't find another way to resolve that error. Well, there is the message clear, which gets done away for a few minutes, but it will reappear very soon. As you can see, the RPMs is 1550, and of course that also has a positive effect on the fuel usage likely, although I'm not 100% sure because looking at this I didn't see too much changes. Currently here you see Molen, and I'm gonna show you how you can zoom out of this map because I didn't show that yet in our previous videos. Zooming out is a little bit, I would say, cumbersome, because you need to do it like this and then need to play around with it. You simply need to click on this part to move around. I find it, I would say, pretty frustrating in some cases, because the blue one, that one resets the view. So you need to watch out that you're not pressing the blue one, the blue reset button, because then you're screwed. You can see that between Molen and the next one, FGR, there's a gap. And that gap is called by this discontinuity. I will show you once we reach Molen how to fix that part, because if you would leave the aircraft like this, the autopilot doesn't like it. But you might understand why. I will come back to you once we reach Molen, and then we discuss the rest of the flight. So as promised, let's have a look what happens now, because we're at the discontinuity and we see that nothing really happens, right? Because let's say the aircraft will continue flying in this direction. In this case we might be lucky, because then we would still end up at FGR, because it's almost a straight line. What you will see is if you switched on the autopilot, it will go to roll mode. It won't use the navigation mode anymore. So there are two options which you can do. The first option is, of course, use this heading mode to set up the heading, to make sure that you continue to fly that specific heading. The discontinuity is kind of normal, because this is part of the approach which we're gonna fly to the destination, and based on my understanding, it's perfectly normal that it will have the discontinuity here, and that you manually fly this or use the heading mode to fly the rest of your flight. The nice thing is, of course, that the FGR one contains all the information, like, okay, the distance to the waypoint, but also to the next one, right? So 223, that's the heading which we need to fly, and this is the distance to the next waypoint. There is, however, a fix for this, and I'm gonna show you how to fix this behavior if you want to continue using the navigation mode. So for that we need to go to this part of the screen, and we need to click on Direct to. The Direct to one activates an option over here. It activates this one on the top. Based on that, you can specify the next beacon, right? So FGR, and hit enter. Then it will say, hey, do you want to fly to this, right? It says, hey, do you want to activate it? You can either press activate here, or you can press cancel to not do it. Well, I'm gonna press activate for now. So based on this, you see that it will remain in roll mode. So you need to reactivate the navigation mode, which is over here, to make sure that it will follow the direction. You can see it makes a small correction, and now you also see that the rest disappears. Perfectly normal, nothing to worry about. However, when you look at this, you can see that the next one is also discontinuity. So it's kind of a weird fix, because it really doesn't actually resolve the issue. It simply is a workaround, which helps you to fly using that nav mode. Currently you can see that the flight level for this specific navigate or beacon is still that flight level 300, which is good for us because we're at the flight level 300. But in a few minutes I would say minutes, how much minutes is it flying to the beacon? Well, normally you would see it, but then we need to switch to a different view. You can see speed, distance and time. It's roughly, well, plus 5 minutes. So within 5 minutes we should be at this nice waypoint. By the way, if you want to see the view, you can also see that view is also being tracked, and other things of course also, which I covered in a previous video. From this waypoint on, we likely need to descend our altitude. So let me show that quickly in the charts. You can either use the charts over here, right? If we go to the MFD, you can press the charts option. There you will be able to find the destination airport. So I can say, hey, I want to, for example, search for a specific airport. Let me go here and then say for the destination airport, which is over here. And then I want to have a different map. For example, I want to have the Star and then it says runway 33. Are we going to runway 33? Well, let's have a look at that. I'm not sure which one we did select, and we can find it over here by pressing this option, runway 33, but then we need to make sure that we're selecting the correct one. Here it says stars, star nav, or you can approach, and then the approach is ILS 33 or lock. This one we can have a look at, right? So let's select it, and then also see the chart. Let's see what happens. And this is our approach. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, fit chart, and then we can zoom in using this nice option and then move around. So here you can see the approach which we need to fly to reach the airport, right? Perpignan Rivesaltes. That's the destination airport which we're flying to. And then it will contain some information like, okay, hey, which direction do you need to fly? And also here we can see the glide path, right? So at D6.6 we need to be at say 2000, and you can see that there are some high markers here, which means that you can't fly lower if I'm correct. And at D9 PPG we need to be at 2000. So that's super important, because if you're not in that, let's say, area, then likely it won't, let's say, do a lot. Now if we press the star option again here, we can also see the star approach, right? The star, the standard terminal arrival route. And then we can also zoom in using this nice map, and then we can see the different say approaches. So in this case FGR3P, which is also being referred to here, that's the approach, and you can see that we need to descend at 1 point to 2000 feet, and then we're gonna fly into the airport. There are some really weird, let's say, things over here. We're gonna fly via Lanet if I'm correct, and then over here is the airport, and you will see weird things happening, but that's something which we'll figure out in the let's say coming minutes of this video. So this is pretty nice, but of course there's also the way to show you between brackets the map using the nice EFB. I'm gonna keep an eye on this one. So you can open the EFB and you can switch between modes, right? So currently it's open in landscape, but you can also move it to portrait if you want. Well, if you want, yeah, it's in landscape currently. So first thing we of course need to do is select the airport. So what we can do is, in this case, we can zoom into the map and then select the airport. Well, I need to zoom into the airport, sorry, missed it. So that's the airport I said, and then click more info. And there we are able to get the information about the airport. And in this view you will see likely the same. So you can press the approach, you can select the arrival, and then select the arrival route, and then we can see the same map as you saw on the MFD in the aircraft. So it's really up to you if you want to use this one or the one which is built into the MFD over here. Really up to you what you want to use. I say I don't have a specific preference. I like both of them. So we're gonna check the view again. So we're gonna correct it. And if you've got to find a fix for it, or if you've seen what I'm doing wrong here, then please let me know, because I don't have an ID about this message on why it continuously throws this fuel management say message. Maybe it's a fuel reset or something, but I don't want to touch that one, to be honest. So you can see that we're coming close. If we press the tab, or if we go to the ATC now, it also says, okay, hey, we need to descend to 2000 feet. Well, maybe that's a good idea, so let's do that. We're gonna use this mode. Let me hide this one for some time, and then we're gonna go to 2000 feet, right? Because that was the instruction. 2000 feet is a rough descent, to be honest. So you can either use the FLC mode, which is flight level change, or you can use the vertical speed mode. It really depends what you prefer. Keep in mind that in some cases it throws an error, right? In this case it says, hey, the NG, right, the gas is below a certain temperature. So I'm gonna say hit this one now, and I'm gonna disable the prop low speed mode for now, because likely that has to do with it. I do think, but I'm not 100% sure, but it might have to do with that part. You can see that it slowly increases. In the meantime, what you see is that we are, let's say, still in the middle of nowhere because it went back to the roll mode. This is also what I figured out, I would say, during my flight. So you can do two things. You can either press here the direct to option, right, which again fixes the issue temporarily, but luckily now it has fixed it continuously, because now you can see that it has activated Bangu. We need to be at 3000 feet at that one. So I'm really, I would say, puzzled by the fact that we were assigned an altitude of 2000 feet, because here it says 3000. But hey, you need to follow the HC instructions, right? So that's what we're doing. So let's do that. In the meantime, you can see that the NG is building up again. It's almost in the green zone, so keep an eye on that one, because likely in that yellow zone, it likely means that there's a warning and you should avoid it. Also, that's why it resulted in the caution, which I kindly suppressed. So what are the things which we need to do right before the landing? This is the part which we need to do before the landing, but currently we're still, let's say, a little far away from the airport. So let's hit reset, if it does allow it. No, it doesn't allow it. So here we can see where we are, right? So we still are, let's say, a little bit from the airport, but we're still good. We're still good. We're moving to these waypoints, and then we should be at 2000 at D138K. So if I open the EFB again, let me do that. D318K. Where is that? Might be that it's not displayed, but here you see Lanette, and that's also what's being shown here, right? So Lanette is likely one of those things which we need to arrive at. You'll see that the approach is a little bit, let's say, kind of a circle, while normally it would be a straight line. So that probably is also a reason for that. And then we're gonna move into the airport and then hopefully successfully land on runway 33. If you want to have a look at that, you can of course also use this nice plan, because this shows you exactly your flight you're gonna make. And here you will see that let's say kind of bow, which they refer to in the map, is kind of skipped, because we're flying to D043K, and then once we're there, we're flying to Lanette, and then we're making a turn here, and then we're, let's say, approaching the airport, hopefully safely. But that's of course is always a question. In the meantime, we're descending like crazy. I'm gonna activate the nav mode again, because I completely forgot to do that, and it should pick it up normally, say pretty soon. Of course, what you can do is you can always use the heading mode, right? If you want to use the heading mode, you're free to do so. In the meantime, you can see that the baro setting has been, I would say, activated. So let's reset the baro by using this option, and then we can fly into the direction of, in this case, 220. So what we can do is we can do it nicely, right? We're flying currently 217. So we can modify this one. Easiest way is to left mouse click and then right, because then it sets to this specific angle, and then you can say, hey, I want to use the heading mode, and then it will activate the heading mode, and you will see that we will move closer to the line. Reason why the nav mode is likely not working, because we're too far from that green line. If you're too far away from it, the nav mode will likely not activate. What you can do is fix it easily by now steering a little bit more to the right. So we can do that, then we can hopefully see what happens. So we're going to move it a little bit here. So we'll fly a little bit more to the right side, right, from the airport, from the aircraft scene. And then we're moving to nicely this direction. Now there of course are some more things, right? For example, you've got other modes which you can use. For example, you can use vertical navigation. In some cases that works. In some cases I've also seen it not work. But in this case, hey, it works. We're lucky. VFLC. So now the the VNAV flight level change has been activated. It can also disable the FLC mode and then only have this one. Then it will continue descending using that one, but I prefer to use the FLC mode or the VNAV mode, and then you can activate or deactivate the VFLC. So the VFLC simply means vertical navigation, and FLC mode has been enabled. You can see that the descending goes pretty fast. Let me also move the aircraft a little bit further to the right. So let me move it to 230. Here we go. And it's also what you can see here, right? So here you can see that this is the, I would say, where we need to move to the right, because the beacon or the nav aid is a little bit further to the right. So let's do that. You can see the weather is super nice. Super nice. Super nice. A lot of sunshine. Outside it's, well, 8 degrees already, because we made a large, I would say, descent, right? From above 10,000 feet to 6 and lower. And you can see that the flight level change is pretty aggressive, because hey, at this waypoint we need to be at 3,000, but we're already almost at 3,000 feet, while we still need to travel 28 point something nautical miles. So you can say, okay, hey, you can reduce it, or you can say keep it like this. So I'm going to show you how to use that vertical speed mode, just for say for you. And using that vertical speed mode, you can reduce the descent rate, right? So you can say, hey, let's start descending with, well, 500 feet per minute. You can see the arrow down here. Maybe you can see it. Let me show you. Here's the arrow down, and here you can see the feet per minute, right, which we're descending. We need to keep an eye on the speed also, because you can see, hey, the aircraft is now decreasing, and now it builds up speed again to go back to the 230, because we're still here at Molen, right? Molen 230. So at Bamco it will automatically decrease to 150, because that's being set up in the flight plan. So super nice. Using the autopilot, fuel quantity, we need to compare it again. Well, 1061. Press it again, and it should be good. While we're talking, I heard the ATC. ATC volume is pretty low. And here it says, okay, hey, we need to fly, we need to continue to D138K, which is this one. And by the way, this is the QNH, right? The QNH, you can change it over here using this button. You can adjust it if you want. In some case, you need to recalculate it, because in this case, it's in inch or in IN, sorry. But you need to change it to the value which you prefer, because 1017, well, likely there's a calculator on the internet, like, let me do that. So what is it? 1017 IN, no, not IN, to IN. And it has to do with the pressure, of course, pressure compensation table. There's a nice page on, for example, EVAO documentation, which helps you. So it says, okay, hey, this value which they give us is the value in hectopascal, and we need to go to inch of mercury. So it's roughly 30, roughly. So we need to change this to roughly 30. It's 30.03 inch. And that's really important to set it correctly. As you can see, we're continuing the descent, which is good. We're also, let's say, being limited by the speed, which is also fine. And we're currently, how far away are we from the beacon? 16.2, and here you can see, oh, the ATC doesn't like it. It says, hey, you need to decrease, come on, decrease your altitude. What we're doing, we're only 200 left from, in this case, the waypoint. Right, we're 27 miles northeast, inbound ILS, runway 33 approach has been assigned to us. So that's super nice, but we're still far away from Bamco, right? So I'm really surprised about this. So what I will do now is I will let the aircraft, let's say, fly. And then, let's say, once we're closer, I'm making the last few steps. I will, of course, come back to you, because I don't think that this makes sense, let's say, watching. So we're coming pretty close to Lanette, and I want to explain the H and the A here, right? The H means the Lanette is also the holding point. That's why you see this angle, right? Or the holding pattern, I should say. I posted a video about it earlier this week, what the holding pattern is and how you can use it and when it's being used. And here you can see the A, and the A can be, hey, also something. And of course I also looked that one up because I was also curious about that. And the A simply means below the altitude, or the A line below the altitude, which is in this case, here the case is below the 2000. It means you must cross that fix at or above that level. If this would be a B, and then that would mean, okay, hey, mean at or below, which is the opposite, right? So it's either A or B. So keep that in mind. In this case, what you can see is that the aircraft will start flying a holding pattern. Really nice. You can see that it automatically says, okay, hey, I'm gonna fly the holding pattern. The question is, of course, how does it come? I didn't figure it out yet. I do think that if we would now, I would say, move on to the D138K, that it will continue to fly. But of course, this is likely due to the fact that we're using the autopilot, which, by the way, has now switched to the nav mode. So you will see the aircraft making turns. It will follow this pattern. It's also can be compared like a racetrack, right? That's what most people are referring to it. And every leg over here is exactly 1 minute, and the turn is also 1 minute, which means that in this case our flight is 4 minutes longer than it should be. That's why you also see that the ETA will start to increase, because hey, our flight simply takes longer. Of course you can say, hey, I want to skip this part and I want to move to the waypoint, right? That's also okay. You can do that, but then follow the path over here to D138K. Which we're gonna do in a few minutes, because now we first need to correct the fuel again. Now if I want hit 2 times enter, and then it says invalid entry, so I do think it has to do with the other entries which are not entirely entirely correct, I should say. So let's move this one. Then we are flying to the holding point, and then we're gonna move to this one. We're gonna move to, in this case, D138K, which is also pretty close to our starting line of the approach inbound to the airport, right? It's also said here you need to switch to the fly heading select mode to intercept, and the intercept, by the way, is the ILS. So I will show that if you go, if I go one page back, hard to say, if I focus on the aircraft, and then you can press ILS or log 1 for 23, and there you will see the ILS frequency over here, 111.75. So then you can go over to this mode, the nav mode, and then you can see it's already here, right? So we're good to go. So everything is, I would say, almost ready for landing. While we're saying that, let me also move this one and then say, hey, I want to go direct to, and then activate it. And now you will see that the aircraft will start making its turn finally to, in this case, D138K. In the meantime, what you can see that also the top of climb is X top of climb. Well, we're not climbing, right? We're there already, so we don't have to do anything. And at one point we need to be at 202 degrees, so it might be wise also to configure in our heading mode, because it's mentioned also here, fly heading mode. So let's do that. We're gonna move the heading to 202. We're not gonna activate the heading mode yet, because that would say be kind of scary to do that. I need to go to 232, of course. Set 202, but that's for the other one, right? 202 is for D138K, and CI33, which is over here, that's on 232. So make sure that you're setting it up correctly and not wrong like I just did. You can also see that the speed also lines up and lines down, simply means you need to be below that let's say speed or above. So likely the aircraft will start, say, moving around that speed. Currently you can see that's already at 150, which is good for CI33, because there we need to be at that specific altitude. In the meantime, right, we can look at some other cool things, like, hey, we can see this. You can see the graphical view of the flight by pressing the VSD option. You can send the V speeds also to the aircraft, or to the to the system, so that you also have them, I would say, for your own view. And you can see that we're flying pretty stable. So it's now, well, roughly 1 minute. So that means 2.1 nautical miles. You can also see that the localizer is 9.6 nautical miles from us. So that's good. So nothing to worry about. You can of course also have a look at these items, right? These items will give us some indications pretty soon about what we need to do. Do we need to descend? Do we need to climb? Etc. And keep in mind that you keep these things, I would say, keep a close eye on these ones. While we're, let's say, on it, right? Let's also do that. We're not going to activate or push down the landing gear yet. We're going to do that on the straight line. And that straight line will be soon there. Here you can see now it turns, right? The aircraft already starts turning because it still can follow that, I would say, nav mode. But once you're at that, I would say, correct line, right? Which means that 232, then make sure that you're setting it to heading mode, because likely it will also shut down the autopilot. But let's see what happens. So here we go, we're making another turn. And then likely we will end up at 232. At least that's what I expect. And in the meantime, right, you can enjoy the, let's say, the outside of everything. You of course could decide to move your flaps already a little bit. Let me do that. Here we go. Flaps already, one down. And now we're on the way to FI 33. That's good. So we're almost in straight line with the runway, and here you can see the runway already. So what you can do is activate the approach mode. And if you switch on the approach mode, things will change. Here you see that the lock is blinking and now it's green, which means that the localizer has been intercepted, which is good, because if the localizer has been intercepted, that's good. You can also see that the aircraft slows down now to 110 knots, right? So we're slowing down already a bit more. So let's also do the gears down, so we can mark this one off. Taxi and landing lights, also let's make sure that they are on. That's done also. Flaps, we're gonna push them further. And I do it step by step. Reason for that is that if you are doing it too fast, you likely will end up in a nightmare scenario, because by dropping the flaps, it also means that you can't fly, I would say, faster than a specific item. And it might give you the overspeed warnings if you're unlucky. Currently, we're going pretty well, if you ask me. So here you can see the map. Here you can see the airport, the runway. You can see the puppy lights already here. By the way, I'm flying using the autopilot, right? So it hasn't captured the glide slope yet. So keep an eye on that, because if it doesn't do it, you might need to move to some corrective actions which you need to take. But likely it will go there. Here it is, because these lines are there. You can now also see that the GS, which stands for glide slope, is also enabled. And then the aircraft will guide itself down. You can still see that the view is there. But hey, I'm not gonna pay attention to it, because I want to pay attention to my landing. So we're gonna use the autopilot mode, and then we can do the last part ourselves, right? The autopilot can be deactivated using the button over here, but it's up to you. Using bad weather, you can always use the autopilot. Using weather like this, like it currently is, you could of course still decide to say, hey, I want to fly using the manual stick, because I do think it's doable. Now we've got the approval to land, also super important, because I faced multiple times already in Flight Simulator that you think you can land, but then at the end you can't land because someone else did land and you need to do a go around. Which, by the way, I also recorded a video about, so have a look at my channel, how to perform those go rounds. Super cool to do, super nice, but of course, I'd say, I hope that you don't have to do them. So we switched off the different modes, right? We switched off the slow mode because that resulted in, I would say, the low NG percentage. And so we're now on our way to the runway. In this case to Perpignan. We did take off from Courchevel, which was a really challenging airport, but super nice to do. If you want, you can also move this, of course, away, make it smaller if you want, although I think this is the smallest which you can do. And we're good, right? You can see that poppy lights, 2 of them red, 2 of them white, which means we're going perfect. And you can also see it over here. It's pretty nice that we're doing this using the autopilot. Of course I do that. I know that several people say, yeah, you don't need to use the autopilot, but hey, let's do it. We're 3 nautical miles from the airport itself. We're on the runway. You can see that we're descending. Final check, gears are down, flaps are in a good state. I would say, let's do it. Let's do it. 900 feet. And we're into one straight line into the runway. Now you can also see that, by the way, here there's that dotted line, that's the missed approach, right? So for some reason, if you missed approach, you can declare the missed approach, report it, and then, let's say, fly that instructions, or fly those instructions. And then once you're, say, good, you will need to follow the instructions from the ATC, and then follow them again. Likely that you will need to do a new, let's say, approach, and then use it. Can see that we're going good. Shall we do the last thing ourselves? Yes, let's do the hard thing. So we switched off the autopilot, so I'm full control now, as you can see. So let's try to make sure that we can land successfully on this nice airport. 2 reds, 2 whites, which means that we're good. You can also see that the ground proximity warning was there, but hey, that makes sense. Keep an eye on the red lights, because now you can see that we're going too low. So we need to make some corrective actions. And make small corrections. Don't make large corrections, make small ones. I also, to be honest, do it wrong a lot of the times. But let's do it small and then, say, try to land successfully on this runway. So I'm gonna pull the nose back a bit, because we need to land a little bit further on the runway. Gonna decrease the throttling and then slowly land on the runway. Here we go. It was the other joystick, the Xbox controller, making a crazy lot of sound. Yes, I'm flying using 2 joysticks. And then gonna brake to reduce the speed. And now we've landed at Perpignan. Really nice. So leave the runway as quickly as possible, right? To avoid that you're disturbing other traffic. Make sure that you're not driving too fast, because it also happened to me once. And then I would say this aircraft really doesn't like it. Once you're there, you can of course contact the ground as instructed by the ATC. And then we can make our way to the... Well, let's do to the parkings. Let's do that.
Perpignan ground, Pilatus Papa Hotel Yankee Delta Yankee. Request taxi to parking.
And of course, for those who are using GSX, you can use, you can ask GSX to do a lot for you, if you want, right? I can show you the things. It says here, taxi to general aviation. Well, it's fine for me. Let's do that. In the meantime, we can already reduce the flaps, if it allows you to do it. Also make sure that you're braking enough, because the airport is kind of challenging, so reduce speed super fast. Here we go. You can see, because if you're going too fast, then making a turn using this aircraft can be kind of nasty. Also watch out for other aircrafts, because we of course don't want to crash. Now we have the, let's say, final thing into our view, right? Because hey, there is the final view. They let us park for some reason at the refueling station. I'm not sure why, but hey, let's do it. So here we go, making the small turn, taxi to view. Well, I'm happy that we need to taxi to view, although I don't need view. And then once we're there, put on the parking brakes. You will see automatically this screen popping up, but I'm closing it for now. So there's one important thing. Right now we've landed, we made a successful landing. If you ask me, if you do think it's different, then also let me know. And we're now on a stop. But the engine is kind of hot, right? So when you arrive with your aircraft, the engine stayed within these limits, but watch out by shutting down the engine directly. You can always leave it running for some time, stabilize it. That's also what we discussed in the previous getting started series with the TBM 930. And then once everything is stabilized, you can simply turn down the engine. Now to turn down the engine, let me also show that how to do that. Let me first go to this list. Right here you can see it. You can say, okay, hey, we need to have the parking brake set. We need to have the flaps up. That's what we've done. External lights. The external lights, oh sorry, moving a little bit too fast. We can switch them off. Right, here we go. You can also set the cabin smoke off. Then make sure you set off the DI systems, which are hidden and by default are for some reason on. So let's push this one. Probes, you can also switch it off. The engine master, right? The engine master, where to find it? Well, the engine master is on the top. But what you can do if you don't know which one to touch, because there are too many buttons, there's always a nice option, and that's to use, yes, bonus tip is to use the built-in checklist from the aircraft itself, because there you will also find the shutdown, which contains exactly the same steps. So the engine master, if you click on this eye icon, it will move you to that position. So this is the engine master, right? So you can switch it off. Now you will hear some alerts, but that's fine, right? We don't need to do anything with that. And then if we're lucky, well, we're not lucky because the view is screwed up. We can go to the engine master off and then switch off the generators. And if you want to move away from that irritating icon, then you need to press the option again. So we're going to move them to off. In this case, we've got 2 generators, right? So be aware of that. Oh, sorry, this is the wrong one. This is the other one. Generators off. You can see more yellows and reds. And then we're moving to the battery switches, which are also somewhere here. So let's move them also off, right? And then as last one, the EFS, which is over here, and then also move it to off. And then the aircraft will likely be in shutdown state. What I've seen sometimes that doesn't do it for some reason. And in most cases, likely because there's some external, I would say, power connected. And you can check that over here. So if we zoom out a bit, you can see it's currently set to off. So I do expect that soon it will go off. For some reason, the other options like these ones, the AV buses, etc., there's nothing mentioned in the manual about it. But if you switch them off, then the aircraft really goes, I would say, off. Really off. So really nice. So we've landed in Perpignan airport. This is also where this series ends. Yes, unfortunately it does. So in this series we looked at the Pilatus PC-12 NGX. Right, from the history, instance to a high altitude IFR climb, and then finally landing on this nice airport. This aircraft is truly the Swiss Army knife of the skies. It's complex, yes, but once you master the standard operating procedures and trust the Honeywell Apex system, it becomes one of the most rewarding planes to fly in all of flight simulation. Thanks for joining me on this few weeks series, on the Getting Started series. If you missed any of the previous episodes on the engine or the cockpit layout, check the playlist because all the videos are there. Fly safe, stay in the green, and I'll see you in the next masterclass. Which aircraft we're gonna discuss next, I'm not sure yet, but maybe I will post a poll out it to let you choose. So keep an eye on my channel. Thanks for watching and hope to see you back next time.